The championship challenges for 2021 are just about to start. I've got the best brawlers for every map as well as the best star powers and gadgets, and I've also got the best brawlers to run if you want to counter what the best brawlers for each individual map are, because I think that's a really important thing to consider in this challenge. And of course I've got some general tips that will help you get the 15 wins. Now this year is a bit different than last year. You actually have 48 hours to do this challenge rather than just 24 hours, but at the same time you get one less loss. So now once you get 3 losses you're out, so you can only win the challenge if you go 15-2 or better. So it's more important than ever that you focus on really picking the best brawlers and the best comps for every map and really trying your hardest. So after these changes, this is a table that shows in a sample size of about 1 million people how many people are going to make it to get 15 wins. And out of 1 million people, it'll be 1,175 people. So 0.12% of people are going to make it to the end. So that means you've got to be in the top 12% of the top 1% in order to make it. So it's definitely going to be hard, but hopefully with these tips, you can get that advantage on other people and hopefully make it to 15 wins. With the new brawler, Colonel Ruffs, I think he's a solid choice for pretty much every single mode, except Heist, he's a bit worse in. But I would recommend that you don't play him in this challenge unless you're in a particular situation where you've practiced with him a lot and you have a complete team of 3. Because since he is such a new brawler, if you haven't practiced with him a lot, he's not going to be a solid choice because you're going to be a lot more comfortable with other brawlers, especially under pressure. You don't want to be playing a brawler who you just unlocked. And also, if you're not going in with a full team of 3, then your super won't get much value because your randoms are going to take it a lot of the time and then just instantly die, and you're not going to get the value that you need to get for Ruffs to be a better brawler than other options that you have. But if you do have a lot of practice with him and you do have a team of 3, he definitely is a pretty solid choice in everything but Heist. So now let's get into the best brawlers, and I'm going to give you the top 5 brawlers for every mode in terms of how to build a team out of these brawlers. And I definitely highly recommend you play in a team, and if you don't have any friends or anything like that, you can use the search for team option. It's definitely better than going in with randoms. But when you're putting together a team, you always want to make sure your team is balanced. So you want to have a brawler with medium to high health. You don't need someone really tanky, but just someone who won't get dunked on by like a Mortis or an Edgar. You want to make sure you have a brawler with a full long range, just that you don't get entirely outranged by your opponents. And you also want to make sure you have a brawler that can win 1v1s close up. And this is particularly in the modes for Heist and Brawl Ball, because if you have a lot of strong brawlers, but they struggle at close range, then whenever your opponents have a brawler that can get close really quickly, your team's gonna struggle and probably fall apart. So as long as you satisfy those conditions, you can basically pick whatever 3 brawlers you want, and they should work together to form a really strong team. So that brings us to the first map, which is Super Stadium in Brawl Ball. And these brawlers are in no particular order. They all can be better or worse than others depending on how you play them and who you play them with. So first is Jessie with her Energized Star Power and the Spark Plug gadget. She's super strong in the meta right now and is able to output a lot of damage pretty quickly and has a boost of control with her turret. Next is Sandy with the Healing Wind Star Power. He's pretty strong after his buffs. His super is incredibly good for maintaining control and getting a massive lead on your opponents, and the healing, you can stay alive and slowly push closer to the goal. Another good brawler is Amber with her Wild Flames Star Power. You can sort of just camp on your oil that you put down with your gadget and charge up a ton of supers over the course of the match, and that's going to be really useful for blocking off your opponents from certain areas and dealing a lot of extra damage if they go into areas that you don't want them to go into, particularly right in front of their goal. Your super is very, very good for getting them out of there, and of course Amber just in general with her main attack is very, very strong in the meta right now. Then we have Nita with the Bear With Me and Faux Fur Star Power. That's going to make your super really, really powerful with the healing and the shield that you have, and is just going to be very hard for certain opponents to deal with. And her main attack is just a good all-around attack that has a decent matchup against a lot of brawlers in the game. And then the 5th brawler we have is Bibi with her Batting Stance Star Power. The shield is going to let her survive a lot more attacks if she's ever holding the ball and walking towards the goal. And Bibi is the strongest tank choice in Brawl Ball right now, simply because of the pushback effect from her main attack, which is really good, and she just has a solid amount of damage output, especially combined with her super, which can hit people all the way across the map, and can really give your team a DPS advantage you need to pull off a team wipe and make a push towards the goal. And the next map you're going to encounter is Dueling Beetles in Hot Zone. The first brawler I would recommend for this is Amber with her Wild Flame Star Power. Your supers are really going to be crucial in this mode because there's only one zone, so if if you can throw your super on it, it covers almost the entire zone, and so if any of your opponents still stand in the zone, they're going to get lit on fire, so it's a very good way to maintain control of that center area. Then we have Penny with the Balls of Fire star power and the Captain's Compass gadget. Penny has some really good spots to place her turrets on this map that are going to be extremely hard for your opponents to get to, and with the Balls of Fire star power, you just have a massive amount of area control, and with the gadget on top of that, there's really not a lot your opponents can do to not just be bombarded with these bombs the entire match. Then we have Jessie coming up again. I think her Energized star power is better here, since a lot of times you're going to be throwing your turret into the lines of fire of a lot of your opponents, so it's good if you can keep it alive just for a bit longer. And here I think you want to use the Spark Plug gadget because it'll help whenever your opponents have a lot of control. If you just throw your turret in between all of them and use your gadget, they'll all be slowed down, and usually that can be enough to regain a lot of the control because your shots are going to bounce between all of them, and hopefully you'll be able to take them out. My next recommendation is Ems with the Bad Karma star power. Now, Ems isn't very good in competitive right now, and I know a lot of pros don't really like her, especially at the higher level, but this is the second map. People aren't going to be playing the best brawlers on this map, and I think Ems is a very solid choice when you don't really know what your opponents are going to be playing. She just has an extremely high damage output over a large area, just about the size of the hot zone, and with her gadget that lets you push back opponents, you have a safeguard against Mortises and Edgars that you might face, so I think Ems is a pretty solid choice on this map. And then finally we have Sandy coming up again with the Healing Winds star power. Obviously, if you just throw your super right over top of the hot zone, that can really help your team just get complete control over the center, because your opponents have no idea where you are, and so you're going to be able to take them out, but they won't be able to take you out. Now the third map is going to be Hot Potato for Heist, and the first brawler I recommend is 8-Bit. Even though he's the slowest brawler in the game, with the plugged in star power, he can become very strong if you get close to the safe and you throw your turret down behind all the many walls on this map. I would use the extra credits gadget here because you can get just a bit more damage off on the safe whenever you do find an opening, and it's gonna make 8-Bit a really tanky, high damage threat on this map. Next, I would recommend Barley. He does really well on the right lane of this map because it's a very thin channel that he can just sort of stand in and lob all his attacks over the wall and onto the safe. If anyone tries to chase you, you can just sort of walk back around the wall, and with one person they can't really ever chase you down, and you're always going to be in range of the safe. So two opponents sort of have to go after you, and even in that situation you can use your Sticky Syrup Mixer gadget, slow them down, maybe even take one of them out, and two of your opponents are already distracted on you, so the rest of your team can go in and take out the safe anyway. I think Barley's a very strong choice for this map. Just play him on the right lane and play really aggressive. Next up is Amber, and I think the Scorchin Siphon star power is a bit better here because it'll let you get a bit of extra reload when you're on the safe, which could be the difference between you getting enough damage to win or lose, and you're not really going to be using your super much this game. The times when you do get it, you probably are just going to use it on the safe for a tiny bit of extra damage, but I think the Scorchin Siphon star power is going to get you the most value in this mode. Now Jessie comes up yet again, this time with her Recoil Spring gadget. Is going to make her turret a huge threat when you get it on the safe, and either star power is pretty good here, but I would prefer Energize, simply because it just lets you keep that turret up longer for the short amount of time that it will be up on the safe. And your attacks are going to bounce from your turret to your opponents anyway, so you don't really need the shots from your turret to bounce from the safe to your opponents anyway. And then finally, I would recommend Rico here. With the super bouncy star power, almost all of his attacks are going to be boosted because there are so many ways to bounce your shots on this map. He has great DPS when he gets on the safe, and he's just a really solid brawler for maintaining control and defending on this map, so I think he's a pretty solid choice. Now the fourth map you'll face will be Hard Rock Mine, which is the gem grab map. First brawler I would recommend is 8-Bit with his plugged in star power. Once again, just a very good option for mobility. If you can get your turret behind some of the walls, you're just going to have a large portion of the center of the map where you can walk at a pretty quick speed and really take advantage of your high damage and high health. Here I'd run the cheat cartridge gadget because you're not going to get much value out of extra credits, and that teleport can definitely come in handy once in a while, especially when you need to move quickly to your opponent's side if they're ever in a countdown or you ever have to quickly pick up some gems. Next I would recommend Mr. P. His Handle with Care star power is great because the center of the map can be pretty open, so just getting that extra range is always very nice to have. And then his new Porter Reinforcements gadget definitely comes in handy here. You can spawn 2 porters at the same time if you have it combined with your super, and that can be a great way to chase down your opponent's gem carriers and just get a lot of pressure on them, force your opponents away from the mine and let your team just have that control for the whole match. Another good option is Byron with his Injection star power. You're not going to get too much value out of Injection, but you certainly won't get much value out of melees anyway. And I think Byron's just pretty solid choice overall on this map because you can easily reach your opponent's side of the map. The healing is very, very great whenever your opponents are trying to make a push on the person who's carrying your gems. And the poison effect is good when there's so much grass because you can see people for a few seconds after you hit them. Next, I would recommend Piper with her ambush star power and the homemade recipe gadget. This is pretty self-explanatory. If you just camp in the bushes and shoot at your opponents, if you hit them, you're gonna kill them because you're doing so much damage. And with the gadget, it's just gonna make it that much easier to hit them. So Piper is a pretty solid choice for this map. And then finally, yet again, I recommend Amber. With her Wild Flames star power, you can sort of just get some oil on your side and charge up your super a lot over the course of the match, burn down your opponent's grass, and maybe even set up 2 of your supers if you want. That's just gonna get you a lot more control of the map, which is very, very important in this mode. Now, also in this mode is when you want to start thinking about countering the meta, because this is where people are going to tend to play almost exclusively really, really good brawlers because people are trying to win. And at this point, if they've made it this far, they have done a good job at winning, so they're probably going to be playing good brawlers. So the brawlers with the highest use rate on this map are Rico, 8-Bit, Mr. P, and Piper. And those brawlers, just when this map is in normal rotation, make up about 37% of the brawlers chosen. So when this is in the championship challenge, I think that number is going to be significantly higher because people are picking these brawlers to win, not just to push whatever they have a quest for. And so those 4 brawlers are going to make up a very large portion of the meta. So if you can play a brawler in your team to counter those brawlers, you might have a significant advantage over them if you don't have confidence in your ability to win with some of the other brawlers I talked about. So a great counter for a lot of those brawlers with a high use rate is Mortis. He can take out Rico, Mr. P, or Piper fairly easily if they're alone. He does struggle with Mr. P's porters, so it's not the best matchup overall, but if you're really good with Mortis, this is a pretty solid map to run him on. I think Mr. P stands out as one of the best brawlers on this map simply because he counters a lot of the other meta brawlers. He can be one of the best answers against 8-Bit because you can hit his turret over walls and stop that 8-Bit from having that boosted speed, which is going to let you get easy kills on him. And his massive range and his ability to spawn porters just gets a lot of pressure against some of those other squishier brawlers. So I think Mr. P is probably the best because he is one of the meta brawlers and he counters a lot of the other meta brawlers. And then finally, the last map is Canal Grande, the bounty map. So the first brawler I recommend here is Tick, and he just got pretty solid with his last gadget, Last Hurrah. So in this map, you really want to focus on taking control of that grass in the center, and if you do that with Tick, without his gadget, he's kind of vulnerable, but with his new gadget, he has the ability to save himself from any close range encounters, and just to apply a bit of aggressive pressure, which you don't normally get to do as a Tick. You normally have to stay really far back and just rely on your attacks. Now you can rely on your actual placement to push your opponents back by using this gadget and sort of running up towards them, and they're going to be forced to run away, and that's going to really help you get control of that center area that you want to get control of. Mr. P is also a great brawler on this map. Handle with Care gives him a ton of range because this map is super open. Once again, the porter reinforcement star power is going to be great for hunting down your opponents in the grass and forcing them to waste some of their ammo on your porters. Byron is also a great choice. The injection star power is definitely going to get a lot more value on this map, and Byron is great to support any sort of tanky brawlers on your team with the healing, as well as just outrange pretty much everyone else and pick off damage little by little until you can make some kills on your opponents. And one of the best brawlers to pair with Byron is Jackie, who also does really well on this map with the Hardy Hard Hat star power for that extra defense, especially since each of those little patches of grass in the center have a wall around them. Jackie does great around these walls and just in grass in general. Definitely if your opponent's playing all long range, it's going to be a bit tougher, but Jackie does just in general let you keep control of that center, and especially if you pair it with someone like Byron, she's not really going to die over the course of the match, so she's very good to store stars on, and she can definitely be a huge asset. And then finally, I recommend Piper with the ambush star power, of course, since if you just get control of that center, you're going to be in bushes like the whole match, so you definitely want that boosted damage and the homemade recipe gadget to finish off kills whenever you have the chance. Obviously, the high damage and the long range is just perfect for this map. So now if we're looking to counter this meta, again, the highest use rate brawlers on this map are going to be Tick, Piper, and Mr. P, and they make up about 30% of the brawlers that are picked on this map when this map is normally in rotation, so it's going to be a lot more in the championship challenge. And if you want to counter Tick, Piper, and Mr. P, they're all pretty squishy, so Mortis is a great option for that, as well as Jackie, who I've already talked about. If you run her, you're likely going to be able to counter a lot of what your opponents are going to play, so it's going to be very difficult for them to take control of that center when you have one of these counter brawlers. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you do well in the challenge, and I hope this video helped you. If you want guides on things that aren't the championship challenge, make sure to check out this playlist. I made a ton of guide videos for Brawl Stars. I would really appreciate it if you check them out, but that's all for today, guys. So see you later.